Yes, sir.
So these deliberative sessions, nothing binding occurs in them? You just go there and listen to bureaucrats pontificate and that kind of thing?
Well, yes, that is a true statement, but there's actually a little more. You have the ability to amend anything that's brought before town meeting on the deliberative session. You could have a warrant article to spend $75,000 to, improve a park. And at the deliberative session, you could vote to reduce that to, say, $30,000 because you found out that you're not going to be able to do all the work in the first year, so why are they asking for all the money? But they can do $30,000 worth of work. So we're going to amend this down to $30,000, and that passes. And that's now what the warrant article will look like on the ballot. Is instead of being $75,000, it's going to be now $30,000. Or the first year or two that SB2 was in place, a lot of us wound up amending articles down to zero. So it would go to the ballot of, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $0 to do some purpose? But after a year or two, I think most of us just started letting stuff go through and trying to convince people to vote it down.
Unless you're angry with some of the bureaucrats.
Yeah.
In our town, in the deliberative session, we amended all of the road issues down to $1 because we didn't like the way the selectmen were dealing with road agents. So we cut quite a bit of money on the budget that way.
And I should ask you also, that's a great point. On the other side of it, we've had situations in our town where it's publicized in the papers beforehand, so people become familiar with question number such and such. And it gets a certain title, a semantic attachment to it, a name that everybody's familiar with. But in deliberative session, what ends up happening is they'll change it, and they'll make it the vested interests on the other side will stick around, and they'll add to it, or they'll change something inside the actual. They get the lexicographers out there and the semanticists, and they start changing things. And so when it appears later on the ballot, some people who haven't been looking into these things think, oh, there's that question, yeah, I'm going to vote in favor of that. And actually, it's been amended by certain people to make it pernicious, to make it bad. So it's always good to try to attend those meetings.
You can always put in a not somewhere.
Yes.
Question.
Yes. Right.
Can you make it voluntary to pay?
Oh, that would be nice.
Yeah.
Well, actually, if I could, there is fundamental language that's put into budget type articles, and it's, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate X dollars for some purpose. And when you raise and appropriate funds, you commit the town, people in the town, to raising that money through property tax unless there's an identified offsetting revenue source.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you explain to me about my ignorance? I've lived in Concord for 11 years, but I don't own my property. My landlady has only raised the rent once, so I've never really gotten involved with the Concord government per se until recently. We don't vote on our school budget, and someone tells me that that's way different than how the other towns do it. And I was just wondering if you could, in a nutshell, explain how Concord works.
The Concord School District for school administrators is nirvana. You've died and gone to heaven because there is no degree of accountability at all. In a traditional town that has a school district meeting, the school board or the superintendent, if you have a weak school board, will try and sell what they want to do to the public. And that's really what town meeting is about, is selling your product to the community. If you work for the community and you want to do something, you want to do that culvert project, or you want to add that something to the school system, you have to convince the stakeholders, which are the taxpayers, that this is a really cool thing to do. Sometimes they do a good job, sometimes they don't. That's in a traditional town. In a city like here in Nashua or Manchester, the school budget is part of the city budget, and it is adopted by the Board of Aldermen, and basically the school board is then given an amount of money to go forth and run the school district on that amount of money. the aldermen have bottom line say on how much it's going to be, not Concord. Concord's all by itself, and it's just, like I said, it's nirvana. The bureaucrats, if you will, the administrators for the city of Concord don't have to sell anything to anyone. The school board in Concord sets the budget, votes on the budget. They don't answer to anyone. And so as a result, the taxpayers in Concord pay for what the school board thinks the budget should be. There's no outside or second check and balance position that challenges or has the ability to reduce. The school board does it all. So if you're an administrator, you don't have to worry about answering to anybody. It's like, here's the check, go out and spend it. When you need some more, come back and we'll tax them some more.
Now, does the city council tax the taxpayers?
Actually,
The school budget?
well,
Is that
yes. Actually, school districts are not taxing entities. Even though, yes, you pay a school tax, what you actually are paying is you're not paying, there is no school tax technically, even though you look at your tax bill and it will say town portion, school portion, state education portion. Technically, what the amount of money that the school taxes are an assessment. It's an assessment against the town. And every 2 weeks, the town, at least in the town I live in and the town I work for, every 2 weeks the town cuts a check to the school district to pay 1/26 of what the school budget is for that year. It's like the county taxes. County taxes are, though it's done by the county delegation, it's an assessment against the town. So school districts are not technically a taxing entity, and thank the Lord for that, or the Lord knows what kind of trouble we'd be in.
Well, in New York, we could vote against the budget for the school, per se. In June, you would go and vote. How would you fight it in Concord then?
Well, the
Meetings or something?
easy answer is to run for the school board, because
Right.
that will give you control of the school budget. It would technically require a change in the city charter of the city of Concord, and those are a little difficult to do. The other answer is move to a town.
You go to the town meetings I've gone to
Yes.
town meetings not town meetings, but the city council meetings about other things. Is that where we would go as taxpayers and complain?
You could, but I'm not so sure that the city council in Concord sets. As a matter of fact, they don't. The school board does. You go to the school board, but if they don't want to listen to you, in a regular city, like here in Nashua, the school board proposes a budget, and the Board of Aldermen decides what the bottom line of that budget's going to be. If, let's say they want $100 million to run the school system in Nashua, and the Board of Aldermen says all you're going to get is $90 million, that's what the bottom line is, and they have to manage with the $90 million. In Concord,